Hey, 42 here. In 1993, a Missouri man purposely damaged a levee on the Mississippi River to delay his wife coming home from work so he could party, drink and have an affair. The river flooded 14,000 acres of land. He was later arrested and convicted of causing a catastrophe and sentenced to a life in prison. Welcome to RIF. The Navy is now teaching sailors celestial navigation as a response to potential cyber attacks to ships' navigation systems. There are a class of people in Japan referred to as cyber homeless who live at cyber cafes because they are a cheaper alternative than an apartment. The cafes offer free showers and sell underwear. Swedish blood donors receive a thank you text after they donate blood, but they also receive a text whenever their blood is used to help someone. There is a Santa Claus University that teaches professional Santa Claus skills like toy knowledge, poses and how to avoid lawsuits. A top level Santa Claus can make up to $100,000 a year. Writing was likely only invented from scratch 3 times in history: in the Middle East, China and Central America. All other alphabets and writing systems were either derived from or inspired by others, or were too incomplete to fully express the spoken language. In 1941, the world's largest seed bank, created by botanist Nikolai Vavilov, was housed in Leningrad. As the Germans surrounded the city, forcing a mass starvation, Vavilov's scientists refused to eat from the seed collection, instead slowly dying of hunger as they maintained 16 rooms of edible plants. If Apple didn't hold $181 billion overseas, it would owe $59 billion in US taxes. A man from New Zealand named Nigel Richards memorised a French dictionary to win the French Scrabble Championship. He can't speak French, but was able to correct his opponents when they attempted to play an incorrect word. More than 1,000 experts, including Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, have signed an open letter urging a global ban on AI weapons systems. When the USS West Virginia was finally raised after being sunk during the bombing of Pearl Harbor, 3 deceased men were found in an airtight storeroom. On the calendar, 16 days were crossed off in red pencil. A Norwegian student named Christopher Koch spent $27 on bitcoins and forgot about them. A few years later, he realised they were worth $886,000. A New Zealand trucker fell onto a high-pressure air valve. It punctured his left butt and inflated him to twice his size, nearly killing him. He survived, but it took 3 days to fart and burp out the excess air. Lenovo's CEO Yang Yuanqing received a $3 million bonus as a reward for record profits in 2012, which he in turn redistributed to about 10,000 of Lenovo's employees. He made a similar gift again of $3.25 million in 2013. Indian housewives hold 11% of the world's gold. That is more than the reserves of the USA, IMF, Switzerland and Germany put together. For his time as James Bond, Daniel Craig has the privilege of taking any Aston Martin from the factory for the rest of his life. The lucky bugger. During the process of becoming a butterfly, the entire caterpillar will break down into a liquid. To be a London black cab driver, one is expected to know over 25,000 roads and 50,000 points of interest and pass a test called the Knowledge. To pass the exam, applicants usually need 12 appearances and 34 months of preparation. In 1956, the US government sent many containers of beer next to 2 atomic bombs that were detonated to determine if the beer was still drinkable. Their conclusion? In the event of a nuclear war, beer is perfectly safe to drink. In Russia, during times of economic disparity or high inflation, teachers in the remote regions were paid in vodka. In-N-Out Burger used to let customers add as many extra patties with cheese as they wanted to their burgers, until one group of 8 people ordered one burger with 100 patties, which contained 19,490 calories. Manute Bol, the tallest player in the history of the NBA, was also the only player in the NBA to have killed a lion with a spear and to have paid 80 cows for his wife. In 2010, a man who was lost in the woods of northern Saskatchewan, Canada, chopped down some power lines so that workmen would have to come and rescue him. The Rhinoceros Party was a registered political party in Canada between the 1960s and 90s. It was led by Cornelius, a rhinoceros, and promised to repeal the law of gravity and change Canada's currency to bubblegum, so it could be inflated or deflated at will. In 1976, an underachieving Princeton junior undergraduate wrote a term paper describing how to make a nuclear bomb. He got an A, but never got his paper back because it was seized by the FBI. In October of 1994, Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, The Shawshank Redemption, and Jurassic Park were all in the theatres at the same time. In Japan, there is a hotel that has been in business for more than 1,300 years, and all that time it has been operated by the same family for 46 generations. According to NASA, nuclear power has prevented over 2 million deaths in the past 40 years as a result of lower air pollution from reduced coal usage. On Titan, the atmosphere is so thick and the gravity so low that humans could fly through it by flapping homemade wings attached to their arms. Charles Pretty Boy Floyd, a Great Depression era gangster and notorious bank robber, endeared himself to the public by destroying mortgage papers at the banks he robbed, freeing many from their debts. In 1808, a gentleman's duel took place at 2,000 feet in a pair of hot air balloons. Each man used a blunderbuss to attempt to destroy the other's balloon. A survey found that 28% of IT professionals hide their career from family and friends out of fear of being asked to provide free tech support. In 2005, a 12-year-old girl was abducted in Ethiopia, and her captors tried to force her into an arranged marriage. She was rescued by 3 lions, who defended her for 3 days from her attackers. When a massive power outage struck Southern California in the 1990s, Los Angeles residents reportedly called 911 to express alarm about strange clouds hovering overhead. They were seeing the Milky Way for the first time. Sheared sheep don't recognise each other and fight for a few days afterwards to re-establish hierarchy. When Stephen Hawking gave a lecture in Japan, he was asked not to mention the possible recollapse of the universe billions of years into the future, for fears of the effects it would have on the stock exchange. The Mexican drug cartels have recently been kidnapping technicians and making them build their own private cell phone network in Mexico. A man earned 4 million airline miles for free without breaking any laws, by using his credit card to purchase free delivery $1 coins from the US Mint. If a dead whale is found on a British beach, then, by law, the head belongs to the king and the tail to the queen. Houston Airport received a lot of complaints about baggage wait times. In response, they moved the baggage claim area further away, so that the walk was longer than the wait. Subsequently, the number of complaints dropped significantly. When people are electrocuted and thrown far distances, it is the result of sudden and violent muscle contractions. It is not caused by the shock itself. This has raised questions as to the actual strength and capabilities of the muscles inside the human body. In 2006, David Copperfield used sleight of hand to trick armed robbers into believing he had nothing on him, even though he was carrying his passport, wallet, and cell phone. Ernest Hemingway took a urinal from his favourite bar and moved it into his Key West home, arguing that he had pissed away so much of his money into the urinal that he owned it. Killing season is a British medical term used to describe the time around August when the newly qualified doctors join the National Health Service. During the Siege of Jerusalem in 1917, the British, in an effort to capture the city from an entrenched Ottoman garrison, started to airdrop cigarettes filled with large doses of opium, hoping that the Ottomans would be too stoned to fight. It worked. Until it was forcibly suppressed during World War I, German was the second most spoken language in the US, with many local governments, schools and newspapers operating in German. In 2011, researchers let 100 paper planes go from 23 miles above Germany. Some have since been found in Canada, America, Australia and South Africa. Samuel L. Jackson has a clause in all his movie contracts, stating that he gets 2 days off a week to play golf, and the producers have to pay for it. It would take 76 days for the average person to read all the terms and conditions they agree to in a year. PC Pitstop, a software company, buried a $1,000 prize deep within its terms of service to see if anyone actually read them. After 5 months and over 3,000 sales later, someone eventually claimed the prize. Contrary to popular belief, Las Vegas is far from the gambling capital of the world. Macau's gambling revenue is a whopping 5 times larger. An American man named Mike Merrill decided to sell shares in himself at $1 a share, with 100,000 shares up for grabs in total, allowing his stockholders to decide what he should do with his life. In 1942, there was a man known as the Phantom Barber who would break into people's houses in Mississippi at night and cut their hair. Until the 1980s, physicians routinely operated on infants without any anesthetic, administering only muscle relaxants to prevent motion, under the belief that infants could not feel pain. In 2006, a man from Portland, Oregon hired a hitman to kill his wife. His wife ended up killing the hitman with her bare hands. Despite the world's hottest chili pepper scoring 2 million Scoville heat units, there is another hotter cactus called Euphorbia resinifera that produces a resin that hits an estimated 16 billion Scovilles. In 2000, a Mexican woman named Inez Ramirez Perez successfully performed a C-section on herself after 12 hours of continuous pain with a kitchen knife and 3 glasses of hard spirits, whilst her husband was out drinking at a bar. An albatross can sleep whilst it flies. Hummingbirds can't walk, their legs are too small and weak. At 120 miles per hour, a Formula 1 car generates so much downforce that it could drive upside down on the roof of a tunnel. If you're in Detroit and you walk south, you'll actually walk into Canada. The stickers on fruit are edible. They are usually made out of edible paper, and even the glue holding it to the fruit is food grade. Black roses do exist, but they only grow in exceptionally small numbers in the Turkish village of Halfeti. This is the only place in the world that they will grow, due to the unique properties of the soil caused by the nearby Euphrates River. You're completely blind for about 40 minutes a day. When your eyes move, your brain purposely blocks your vision to avoid blurring, which is why you can't see the motion of your eyeballs in a mirror. It's called saccadic masking, and without it, your life would be like watching a constant movie that's filmed with a shaky handheld camera. In ancient Greece, throwing an apple at someone was a way of declaring your love for them. During the 18th century, you could pay your admission to the London Zoo by bringing in a dog or a cat to feed to the lions. Russian mathematician Grigory Perelman solved a 100-year-old maths problem called the Poincaré conjecture. He declined the Fields Medal and $1 million in awards because he hated the recognition that the maths community gives to people who prove things. It is illegal to not flush the toilet in Singapore. If you fail to flush, you'll be forking out over $150 in fines. What's more, police officers have been known to check. In France, by law, a bakery has to make all the bread it sells from scratch in order to have the right to be called a bakery. In China, if you hit someone with your car, you must pay for their medical care for the rest of their life. However, if you kill someone with your car, you only pay a one-time fee. For this reason, it is fairly common for people to go back and kill someone they accidentally hit. NASA hires a man to sniff everything that they send into space. If he doesn't like the smell, it doesn't go into space. This job might sound strange, but should not be underestimated. Nasty smells can be extremely hazardous when you're stuck in a small cabin for months with no windows. In the Chinese city of Chongqing, cell phone addicts have their own sidewalk lane. More people drown in deserts than die of dehydration, because when it rains in a desert, it rains. When desert rainstorms do happen, they are extremely violent. On average, United States Congress brings up Hitler 7.7 times per month. You exert more energy when you unfold a single piece of paper than in all the radio waves we have ever collected from outer space. Samsung is responsible for 25% of South Korea's GDP. Some Canadian police departments give out positive tickets to thank people for doing good. The first person to be sentenced to the stocks in Boston was Edward Palmer, the person who built the stocks. His crime was charging too much for building the stocks. When The Princess and the Frog came out in cinemas, 50 children were hospitalized with salmonella from kissing frogs. In Holland's embassy in Moscow, 2 Siamese cats kept meowing and clawing at the walls of the building. Their owners finally investigated, thinking they would find mice. Instead, they found microphones hidden by Russian spies. In 1985, a man from New Orleans drowned at a party attended by 100 lifeguards. The party was to celebrate going an entire summer without a drowning in a city pool. When you get a kidney transplant, it's more common to just leave your original kidneys in your body and put the third kidney in your pelvis. In the early 1900s, a wave of molasses rushed through the streets of Boston at 35 miles per hour, killing 21 people and injuring 150. It has since been named the Boston Molassacre. Cosmic rays from outer space cause glitches in your electronics. In some electronics, cosmic rays are the primary source of software errors. Cosmic rays are one of the main reasons that servers and high reliability computers use error correcting RAM. If a tree is low on a particular type of nutrient, it will borrow some from its neighbouring trees via its roots, and then give the nutrients back at a later date. This happens more often in the winter months. There used to exist a flying reptile that was as tall as a giraffe, called a Quetzalcoatlus. In Australia in 1932, there was a war called the Emu War. The Australian military tried to fight off emus that were running amok across Western Australia using machine guns. The emus won. French writer Guy de Maupassant ate lunch in the restaurant inside the Eiffel Tower almost every day because he hated the tower, and that was the only place in Paris where he couldn't see it. US scientists calculated that Santa would have to visit 822 homes a second to deliver all presents on Christmas Eve. But who's to say he can't? America has a $4 billion stockpile of milk fat for cheese and butter that is sitting in a cave in Missouri. During the First Opium War of 1839, 19,000 British troops fought against 200,000 Chinese. The Chinese had 20,000 casualties, the British just 69. This marked the start of the so-called Century of Humiliation in China. Microsoft has created 3 billionaires and roughly 12,000 millionaires. In 1929, the US Supreme Court voted 8-1 in favour of a eugenics program requiring forced sterilisation of citizens deemed not smart enough to reproduce. Merriam-Webster added McJob to their dictionaries, defined as a low-paying job that requires little skill and provides little opportunity for advancement. McDonald's asked for it to be removed, to which they replied, "We stand by the accuracy and appropriateness of our definition." Starbucks pays more for its employees' health insurance than it pays for coffee. During the filming of Borat, the FBI assigned a team to follow Sacha Baron Cohen due to countless reports of a Middle Eastern man travelling the Midwest in an ice cream truck. Porn sites are the sites you're statistically least likely to get malware from, due to them being strictly monitored because malware is bad for repeat business. On the other hand, you're most likely to get malware from religious sites. A study found that the average religious website is infected with 115 malware threats. Just 24 rabbits were set loose into Australia. Within 67 years, their population had grown to 10 billion. Years of geographical isolation has left Australia with no natural predator to the rabbit. They migrated across Australia at a rate of 80 miles per year. There are still completely unexplored passageways inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. In 1847, a doctor named Robert Liston performed an amputation in 25 seconds, operating so quickly that he accidentally amputated his assistant's fingers as well. Both later died of sepsis, and a spectator reportedly died of shock. To date, this is the only known medical procedure to have a 300% mortality rate. And finally, if you could fold a piece of paper in half 42 times, it would reach the moon. And if you could fold it 103 times, it would be as thick as the observable universe. Thanks for the view, subscribe for more 42.